The transport shuttle landed on Station Helix 9 with a soft hum. The doors opened, and hundreds of young warriors from 12 different star systems walked out into the massive docking bay. They came from planets scattered across the galaxy, each one carrying weapons that their species had perfected over thousands of years. Stepped off the shuttle last. She was small compared to most of the aliens around her. Her black hair was tied back in a simple ponytail, and she wore the standard gray uniform given to all new cadets. She carried no weapon. She had no visible modifications to her body. She looked completely ordinary. A group of cadets walked past her. They were tall beings with silver skin and 4 arms. Each arm ended in claws that could generate plasma hot enough to melt steel. They looked at and laughed among themselves. One of them made a gesture that clearly meant she was weak. Did not react. She simply kept walking toward the intake station. The Galactic Combat Academy was the most famous military school in the known universe. Only the best warriors were accepted. They came with their plasma claws. They came with their bodies covered in bone armor so thick that bullets bounced off them. They came with neural whips that grew from their own spines and could cut through metal. Every species had their gift. Every species had their weapon. Humans had nothing. At least that was what everyone believed. The intake station was a long hall filled with officers checking documents and scanning weapons. Joined the line and waited. In front of her, a young warrior was showing off his arm blades to a group of impressed cadets. His name was, and he was already famous on his home world for killing a sand beast with his bare hands when he was only 15 years old. Noticed standing behind him. He turned around and looked down at her. He was nearly 3 meters tall, and his gray skin was covered with natural bone plates that looked like armor. "Human," he said. His voice was deep and rough. "You are one of the soft ones." "I am human, yes," replied calmly. Leaned closer. "I have fought humans before in the border conflicts. They break easily." He smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "How long do you think you will last here, soft one?" "Long enough," said. Laughed loudly. Several other cadets turned to watch. "Long enough, she says, long enough." He shook his head. "I give you 3 days before you run home crying to your weak little planet." Did not answer. The line moved forward and she stepped up to the intake desk. The officer behind the desk was a named commander. He had 4 arms like all his kind, and his silver eyes scanned a holographic screen as approached. "Name?" he asked without looking up. "You from Earth?" Typed something on his screen. His eyes moved back and forth as he read her file. Then he stopped. His silver eyes looked up at her with confusion. "Human female, age 22, planet of origin, Earth." He paused. "Combat specialty, unlisted." He looked at her more carefully now. "You brought no weapon?" "No." "No biological enhancements? No technological modifications?" "No." Leaned back in his chair. "The Academy requires all cadets to demonstrate combat ability. Every student must have a weapon classification. How do you expect to complete your training without a weapon?" Met his eyes steadily. "I do not need one." The cadets nearby heard this and burst into laughter, slapped his armored knee and pointed at her. "Did you hear that? She does not need a weapon. The human thinks she can fight with her tiny soft hands." Commander did not laugh. He studied for a long moment. There was something in her eyes that made him uncomfortable, a calmness that did not match her situation. Finally, he stamped her documents. "Barracks 7, room 42. He handed her "Your ranking trial will be in 4 days. If you cannot demonstrate combat ability, you will be sent home." "I understand," said. She took the and walked away. The barracks were located in the lower section of the station. Walked through long corridors filled with cadets from different species. Some ignored her. Others stared at her with curiosity or contempt. A few made threatening gestures. She paid no attention to any of them. Room 42 was small but clean. 2 beds, 2 desks, 2 storage lockers, simple and functional. When entered, she found that her roommate was already there. The other woman was also human. She had short brown hair and tired eyes. She was sitting on her bed, reading something on a tablet. When entered, she looked up. "You must be the one without a weapon classification," she said. Her voice was neither friendly nor unfriendly, just careful. "Yes, I am." The woman put down her tablet. "I am a kinetic specialist. I can generate force pulses from my hands." She held up her palm and saw faint scars around her wrist. It took 7 years of neural modification to develop the ability. Very painful, but at least I have something to show at the trials. Nodded and began unpacking her single bag. She had brought very little, some clothes, a few personal items, nothing that looked like a weapon. Watched her with growing curiosity. "They have already placed bets on you, you know. The whole station is talking about the human who came with nothing, says you will last 3 days. Some of the say 2. "What do you say?" asked without turning around. Was quiet for a moment. She had been at the academy for 3 months already. She had seen many cadets come and go. She had learned to read people, and something about did not make sense. Any normal person would be nervous, scared, desperate, but moved with a quiet confidence that seemed completely out of place. Her hands were steady. Her breathing was calm. She acted like someone who knew something that nobody else knew. "I say there is something they are not seeing," finally answered. Turned and looked at her. For just a moment, something flickered in her dark eyes, something old and deep and powerful. Then it was gone, and she was just a small human woman again. "You are smart," said. "That will keep you alive." She finished unpacking and lay down on her bed. Within minutes, she was asleep. Stayed awake for a long time, watching her mysterious roommate and wondering what secrets she was hiding. Outside the window, the stars burned cold and bright, and somewhere in the distance, something ancient and terrible was beginning to stir. 4 days passed quickly at the academy, spent most of her time watching. She attended the basic orientation classes. She ate in the common hall. She walked through the training areas and observed the other cadets practicing their combat skills. They were impressive. Their plasma claws could cut through thick metal plates like paper. They moved fast and struck hard. They were slower but almost impossible to hurt. Their bone armor could take direct hits from military-grade weapons. They were perhaps the most dangerous of all. Their neural whips moved like living things, controlled by thought alone, able to strike from angles that seemed impossible. And then there were the humans. There were only 3 humans at the academy, with her kinetic pulses. A man named who had been modified with enhanced reflexes and carried a pair of energy pistols, and who carried nothing at all. The ranking trials were held in a place called the Crucible. It was a massive arena in the center of the station that could change its shape and environment to test different combat situations. Mountains could rise from the floor. Rivers could appear from nowhere. Buildings could form and collapse. The Crucible was designed to test not just strength, but adaptability. On the day of the trials, hundreds of cadets gathered in the observation decks around the arena. The trials were broadcast throughout the station. Everyone wanted to see who would rise and who would fall. The trials went on for hours, impressed everyone by destroying 6 combat drones with his bare hands. His bone armor took hit after hit without cracking. The instructors marked him as a top-tier cadet. They performed well too, their plasma claws leaving glowing marks on everything they touched. They moved like dancers, their neural whips singing through the air. The humans did not do as well, scored in the middle range. His enhanced reflexes were good, but not good enough to match the natural abilities of the other species. Did better than expected. Her kinetic pulses were not powerful, but she was smart and used them creatively. She earned a respectable score. Finally, it was turn. By this time, most of the observers had left. The instructors were tired. Only a handful of people remained in the observation deck, including Admiral, the head weapons master of the Academy. She was old by the standards of her species, but still deadly. Her neural whip had killed 17 enemies in a single battle during the border wars. She had stayed to watch the human trials out of curiosity. Humans were rare at the Academy, and she wanted to see if any of them had potential. Walked into the arena alone. She wore the standard training uniform. No weapons, no armor, nothing. Admiral activated the communication system. Her voice echoed through the arena. "Cadet, you have listed no weapon classification. The Crucible requires armed combat for proper assessment." She paused. "Do you forfeit?" "No." His voice was calm and clear. "I request permission to use environmental resources." Murmurs spread through the observation deck. Environmental resources. It was an old rule that almost nobody used anymore. It allowed cadets to use anything in the arena that was not classified as a restricted weapon. His eyes narrowed with interest. "Granted." She pressed a button and the arena began to change. The floor shifted. Walls rose and fell. When the movement stopped, the arena had become a simulated command deck. There were control consoles, chairs, and in the center of the room, a heavy metal desk bolted to the floor. Standard military furniture. Nothing that could be used as a weapon. Or so everyone thought. 3 combat drones activated. They floated up from hidden compartments in the floor. Class 4 military grade. Armored. Armed with stun weapons and capture nets. Enough to challenge most intermediate cadets. Stood still, she did not move. She did not run. She did not try to hide behind the furniture. The first drone raised its weapon and fired. What happened next would be discussed for years. Moved, not fast in the way the moved, not with the raw power of the. She moved like water flowing downhill. Natural, inevitable. She crossed the distance to the metal desk in less than a heartbeat. Her hands touched the surface of the desk. And the metal began to change. In the observation deck, Admiral rose from her seat. Her neural whip uncoiled unconsciously, reacting to her shock. The scientists monitoring the trial began shouting at each other, pointing at readings that made no sense. The desk was folding, not bending, not breaking. The molecular structure of the metal itself was reorganizing. Atoms shifted position. Bonds reformed. The shape changed from a desk into something else entirely. A blade. Not a crude piece of metal torn from the furniture. This was a weapon, a perfect weapon. The edge had been compressed to monomolecular sharpness, thin enough to cut between atoms. The weight had been redistributed so the balance was perfect. The handle fits hand as if it had been made for her. Because it had been, she had made it, in less than 2 seconds. Moved again. The first drone fell in 2 pieces. The cut was so clean that the metal did not even spark. The 2 halves simply separated and fell to the ground. The second drone tried to fire. Was already past it. Her blade sang through the air, and the drone split apart before it could complete its targeting sequence. The third drone was smarter. It tried to retreat to gain distance to call for backup. But there was nowhere to go, appeared in front of it like a ghost. 1 strike. 1 perfect cut. The drone collapsed. Silence filled the observation deck. Stood in the center of the arena, surrounded by the remains of 3 military-grade combat drones. The blade in her hand gleamed under the lights. She was not breathing hard. She was not sweating. She looked like she had done nothing more difficult than taking a walk. Admiral finally found her voice. "What was that?" Looked up at the observation deck. She held up the blade, and then she did something that shocked them even more than the fight. She touched the blade again, and it began to unfold. The metal reorganized itself. The shape changed. The molecular structure returned to its original state. Within seconds, the blade was gone. In its place was a piece of metal that looked exactly like a section of the desk. Placed it on the floor and stepped back. Environmental resources, she said simply, as permitted by the rules. In the observation deck, Admiral turned to her fellow instructors. Their faces showed the same expression she was feeling, not just surprise, not just confusion. Fear. They had spent centuries believing that humans were the weakest species in the galaxy. Soft bodies, short lives, no natural weapons, easy to kill, easy to ignore. They had been wrong. Looked back at the small human woman standing alone in the arena. She was already walking toward the exit, as calm and quiet as when she had entered. Find out everything about her, ordered. Everything about her planet, everything about her species. She paused. I want to know what else they have been hiding from us. The science division of the Academy worked for 3 days without sleep. They analyzed every second of the footage from trial. They studied the readings from every sensor in the arena. They ran simulations and calculations and tests. The results made no sense. Doctor, the head scientist, was with specialization in molecular physics. He had spent 40 years studying matter manipulation technology. He had seen plasma cutters and atomic assemblers and quantum disruptors. He thought he understood the limits of what was possible. He was wrong. We are calling it molecular origami, he explained to the gathered council. His voice was shaking slightly. She reorganized the atomic structure of the metal through direct contact. The bonds between atoms were broken and reformed in a new pattern. The density increased by 400%. The edge of the blade measured less than 1 nanometer thick. Admiral leaned forward. How is this possible? What technology allows this? Doctor shook his head. That is the problem, Admiral. There is no technology. Our sensors detected no energy source, no radiation, no electromagnetic fields. She did it with her bare hands. He paused. The energy required to reorganize matter at this level should have killed any organic being instantly. The heat alone should have vaporized her hands, but she showed no signs of strain at all. The council chamber fell silent. 12 species were represented here. 12 different civilizations with thousands of years of combined scientific knowledge, and none of them could explain what they had seen. Admiral made a decision. Bring her here now. 30 minutes later, stood before the council. She looked small in the large chamber, surrounded by beings that were bigger and stronger and more powerful than her. But she did not look afraid. Spoke first. You will explain what you did in the Crucible. You will explain how you did it. And you will explain why your species has hidden this ability from the galactic community. Considered her words carefully. She had known this moment would come. She had prepared for it, but preparation did not make it easier. My species calls it the fold, she began. It is the ability to reorganize matter at the atomic level through focused intent. We touch something and we change its structure. We can make it stronger or weaker. We can change its shape. We can compress it or expand it. That is impossible, a counselor interrupted. Matter cannot be changed by thought alone. The laws of physics do not allow it. Your laws of physics, corrected gently. Earth has different laws. This caused an uproar. Several counselors began shouting at once, raised her hand for silence. Explain, she commanded. Took a breath. 400 years ago, humans discovered something. Our planet exists at a point where multiple dimensional layers overlap. This gives us access to energy that other species cannot reach. Our scientists spent centuries learning to use this energy. They developed techniques to channel it through the human body and into physical matter. She held up her hand. Every human has this potential, but developing it requires decades of training. Most humans can only manage small changes, making metal slightly harder, smoothing rough surfaces, simple things. She lowered her hand. Only a few of us can do what I did in the arena. I am one of 12 in my entire species. The council absorbed this information. Finally, spoke from the gallery where he had been watching. His arm was still bandaged from a training accident, but his eyes were sharp. Why reveal this now? He asked. Why come here to show us? Turned to face him. She had expected this question too. Because something is coming, she said. Something that your claws and armor and weapons cannot stop. Our oracles have seen it. A threat from beyond the edge of the galaxy. Beings that do not exist fully in our dimension. Beings that cannot be touched or hurt by normal means. The chamber went very quiet. Our scientists call them the Unbound, continued. They have destroyed 17 civilizations in other galaxies. They are coming here. They will arrive within 5 years. She looked around the chamber at each counselor in turn. Your weapons will pass through them. Your armor will not protect you. Your abilities will be useless against enemies you cannot touch. And your fold can stop them? Asked. The fold can affect dimensional boundaries. We can force them into normal space, make them solid, make them vulnerable. Paused. But we cannot fight them alone. There are only 12 of us who can use the fold at combat level. We need warriors, real warriors, people who can fight once we make the enemy touchable. She looked directly at Admiral. We came here to find allies, to see if the other species of this galaxy were worth saving. Her voice was calm but carried weight. We came to see if you would fight beside us or run away. The silence stretched for a long moment. Finally spoke. Her voice was different now. The suspicion was still there, but something else had joined it, respect, and perhaps a little fear. You came alone to test us, one small human against an academy of warriors. She almost smiled. That is either very brave or very stupid. My people have always been both, replied. Laughed suddenly. It was not a mocking laugh this time. I called you soft, he said. I said you would break easily. He shook his head. I was wrong. You are the most dangerous thing in this station. No, said. The Unbound are the most dangerous thing. I am just the warning. The council debated for hours after left. Some believed her. Some did not. Some wanted to arrest her and force her to reveal all of humanity's secrets. Others wanted to ally with Earth immediately. In the end, Admiral made a decision that would change the history of the galaxy. We will watch, she announced. We will wait, and we will prepare. She looked at the other counselors. If the human is telling the truth, we will need her. If she is lying, we will know soon enough. She did not say what everyone was thinking, that either way, nothing would ever be the same again. In her small room in the barracks, sat by the window and looked at the stars. Sat across from her, processing everything she had heard about the council meeting. They are scared of you now, said. They should be scared of what is coming. Will they help us when the time comes? Was quiet for a long moment. She had spent years preparing for this mission. She had trained her whole life for the battle ahead, but she still did not know if it would be enough. Some of them will, she finally said. That is all we can ask for. Outside the window, the stars continued to burn, and somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, something vast and terrible continued its journey toward them. The weeks after the council meeting were strange ones for. Word had spread through the entire station about what she had done in the Crucible and what she had told the council. The mockery stopped. No one called her soft anymore. No one laughed at her lack of weapons. Instead, they avoided her. Corridors emptied when she walked through them. Cadets who had been sitting in the common hall would suddenly remember somewhere else they needed to be. Even the instructors treated her differently. They were polite but distant, careful but cold. Fear had replaced contempt, was not sure which one was worse. She continued her daily routine, training, eating, watching. But now she did these things alone. The other cadets kept their distance. Even who had seemed almost friendly after the council meeting now gave her strange looks when they passed in the halls. Only stayed. They do not understand you, said one evening. They were in the training room, was practicing with broken furniture, folding and unfolding pieces of metal over and over, watched from a safe distance. They have spent their whole lives believing that strength comes from weapons and armor. You showed them that everything they believed was wrong. Did not answer immediately. She was focused on the piece of metal in her hands. It had been a chair leg. Now it was a thin blade. Now it was a solid cube. Now it was a chain of linked rings. The transformations happened smoothly, almost automatically. I did not come here to make friends, finally said. I came here to find warriors. And did you find any? Let the metal return to its original shape. She set it down and turned to face. A few has potential. His body is built for combat and his spirit is strong. Some of thee are impressive, Admiral especially. She is old, but her instincts are still sharp. What about me? Asked. There was no self-pity in her voice, just honest curiosity. Studied her roommate carefully. Was not strong like the. She was not fast like the. Her kinetic pulses were useful but limited. By the standards of the academy, she was average at best. But had learned long ago that combat ability was not just about strength or speed or firepower. You stayed, said. Everyone else ran away from me, you stayed. That makes me brave, not useful. Brave is useful. Picked up another piece of broken furniture and began to fold it. When the unbound come, we will need people who do not run. People who stand their ground even when they are afraid. People who fight even when the odds are impossible. Considered this. Can you teach me the fold? Paused. This question had been asked many times in the past weeks. Scientists wanted to study the fold. Military commanders wanted to weaponize it. Politicians wanted to control it. Everyone wanted to learn the secret of changing matter with their minds. The answer was always the same. It takes decades of training, explained. The human brain must be conditioned from childhood to channel dimensional energy. The neural pathways must be developed slowly over many years. Even then, most people can only manage small changes. She held up the piece of metal, which was now shaped like a flower. I began training when I was 4 years old. I did not achieve my current level until I was 19. 15 years, said quietly. 15 years of daily practice. 15 years of pain and failure and small progress, and I was considered a prodigy. Let the metal flower unfold back into a plain rod. Most trainees never get beyond basic manipulation. Simple density changes, small shape adjustments, nothing that would help in combat. Nodded slowly. So we cannot learn, we cannot help. I did not say that. Set down the metal rod and faced her roommate fully. The fold is only one weapon. It is not the only weapon. When the unbound come, we will need every kind of warrior. Soldiers who can shoot, fighters who can cut, defenders who can hold the line. She paused. The fold can make the enemy touchable, but someone else must deliver the killing blow. Before could respond, the door to the training room opened. Stood in the doorway. His expression was serious. The council has called an emergency meeting, he said. They want you there, human, both of you. The council chamber was full when they arrived. Every counselor was present, every senior instructor. The atmosphere was tense and heavy. Admiral stood at the center of the room. Her face was grim. Our long-range sensors detected something 2 hours ago, she announced. A disturbance at the edge of the galaxy. Energy readings that match nothing in our databases. She pressed a button, and a holographic image appeared in the center of the room. It was hard to look at. The shape kept changing, shifting. It was there and not there at the same time. It hurt the eyes to focus on it. Is this what you warned us about? Asked, looking at. Stared at the image. Her face had gone pale. No, she said. Her voice was barely a whisper. This is only a scout, a single scout. The room went very quiet. You said we had 5 years, said. His voice was tight. I was wrong, could not look away from the shifting image. They are already here. As if in response to her words, the station's alarms began to scream. Red lights flashed throughout the chamber. Warning messages scrolled across every screen. The holographic image flickered and then was replaced by a tactical display showing the station's defensive grid. 3 contacts had appeared inside the station's outer perimeter. They had not been detected by any of the normal sensors. They had simply appeared, as if they had stepped out of nowhere. The Unbound had arrived, and humanity's warning had come too late. Turned to Admiral, there was no fear in her eyes now, only cold determination. "Evacuate the cadets to the inner sections," she said. "Seal the blast doors. Do not engage the enemy directly. Your weapons will pass through them." "What will you do?" demanded. Was already walking toward the door. "What I came here to do," she said. "What I trained my whole life for." She paused at the doorway and looked back at the assembled council. At with his armored fists, at with her neural whip, at with her kinetic pulses, at all the warriors who had called her weak and weaponless. "Follow me if you want to live," she said. "Follow me if you want to fight." Then she was gone, running toward the sound of screaming. And one by one, the warriors followed. The central plaza of Station Helix 9 had become a place of death. When arrived, she found chaos. Cadets were running in every direction. Some were trying to fight. Most were trying to escape. The emergency lights painted everything in shades of red, and the alarm continued to scream its endless warning. 3 Unbound floated in the center of the plaza. They were impossible to describe properly. They existed in multiple dimensions at once, their forms shifting and changing constantly. One moment they looked almost humanoid. The next moment they were nothing but angles and shadows and wrongness. Looking at them too long made the mind hurt. A group of warriors charged at the nearest Unbound. Their plasma claws burned bright with killing heat. They struck at the creature again and again. Their claws passed through empty air. The Unbound was there, but it was not there. It existed in their dimension, but also outside of it. Physical attacks could not touch it. Energy weapons could not harm it. But it could touch them. One of the Unbound moved, not quickly. It did not need speed. It simply reached out and touched the lead. Where its hand made contact, reality twisted. The screamed once and then fell silent. His body collapsed, broken in ways that should have been impossible. More warriors fell, with their unbreakable armor, with their deadly whips. Humans with their modified bodies and technological weapons. Nothing worked, nothing helped. Was still fighting. One of his arms hung useless at his side, broken in 3 places. Blood ran down his face from a wound on his head, but he refused to retreat. He stood in front of a group of wounded cadets, roaring challenges at the approaching Unbound. "Come on," he shouted. "Come and fight me. I am not afraid of you." His bone fists swung at the creature. They passed through without effect. The Unbound drifted closer. Admiral appeared at side. Her neural whip was glowing white-hot with power. She had pushed it beyond its normal limits. She struck at the Unbound, and for just a moment something happened. The creature flickered. It became slightly more solid. But only for a moment. Then it was intangible again, and the effort had burned out her whip completely. "We cannot touch them," gasped. "Nothing we do works." That was when walked into the plaza. She moved calmly through the chaos. Cadets ran past her. Screams filled the air. The Unbound drifted closer to the remaining survivors, but did not run. She did not hide. She walked to the center of the plaza and knelt down. She placed both hands flat on the floor. The plaza floor was solid titanium alloy, 100 meters across, bolted directly to the station's structural frame. It had been designed to survive direct hits from military weapons. Was about to fold all of it. She closed her eyes and reached down into herself, past her muscles and bones and blood, past the normal parts of her body, down to the place where dimensional energy lived inside every human, the place that had been awakened by 4 centuries of development and 15 years of personal training. She found that energy and pulled. The strain was immediate. Folding a desk had been easy. Folding a shuttle had nearly killed her. Folding something this large, doing something this complex should have been impossible. But was not trying to change the shape of the floor. She was not trying to make it into a weapon. She was trying to fold space itself. Blood vessels burst in her eyes. Her vision turned red. Blood began to run from her nose. Every nerve in her body screamed in protest. The dimensional energy burned through her like fire, and she forced it outward anyway. The plaza began to change. Not the metal, the space around the metal. The dimensional boundaries that separated normal reality from the places where the unbound lived, found those boundaries and folded them. She compressed them. She forced them together. The unbound screamed. It was a sound that existed in frequencies beyond normal hearing. It echoed in dimensions that human minds could not perceive. It was the sound of beings who had never been trapped, never been contained, never been made vulnerable. Until now. The plaza twisted, reality compressed, and the unbound were caught in the fold. They were dragged out of their dimensional hiding places and forced fully into normal space. For the first time, they were solid. For the first time, they could be touched. For the first time, they could be killed. Did not hesitate. He was wounded. He was bleeding. He had one working arm, but he saw his chance and took it. His boned fist, dense as any natural material in the galaxy, connected with the first unbound's newly solid form. The creature shattered like glass. Fragments of dimensional matter scattered across the plaza and dissolved into nothing. Moved next. Her neural whip was burned out, but she still had claws. All had claws. She had simply never needed them before. Now she used them for the first and last time in her long career. The second unbound fell in pieces. Faced the third creature. Her kinetic pulses were weak. They had never impressed anyone at the academy, but something was different now. The folded space amplified her power in ways she did not understand. When she pushed, the force that emerged from her hands was 10 times stronger than it had ever been. The third unbound exploded. And then it was over. Collapsed. When she woke up, she was in the medical bay. Everything hurt. Her head felt like it was full of broken glass. Her eyes were bandaged. She could not feel her hands. Admiral was sitting beside her bed. "You almost died," said. Her voice was soft, almost gentle. "Did it work?" His own voice was a broken whisper. "The unbound are destroyed. The ones here, at least." Paused. "Our sensors now show more of them beyond the galaxy's edge. Many more. Your warning was accurate. They are coming." Tried to sit up and failed. Her body refused to obey her commands. "Then we need to prepare." "We will." His hand, surprisingly gentle for a warrior who had killed 17 enemies in a single battle, pressed back down. "The Council has voted. The Academy's purpose has changed. We are no longer training warriors for border conflicts and political games." "What are you training them for?" "War, real war. The kind that determines whether civilizations survive or fall." Paused. "We are asking Earth to teach us the fold. We know it takes decades. We know most of us will never master it, but we want to try." Was quiet for a long moment. She thought about the pain she had endured, the years of training, the sacrifices she had made. She thought about all the warriors who had fallen in the plaza because they could not touch the enemy. And she thought about charging the unbound with one working arm, about standing her ground when she could have run, about fighting beside her cadets instead of fleeing to safety. "You came here to see if we were worth saving," said. "Were we?" Remembered the mockery, the contempt, the betting pools on how quickly she would fail. She remembered being called soft and weak and worthless. But she also remembered what happened when the real enemy came. She remembered warriors who had never faced true fear standing their ground anyway. She remembered species who had been rivals for centuries fighting side by side. She remembered an academy full of strangers becoming an army in the space of minutes. Yes, said you were. 3 years later, the first class of non-human fold practitioners graduated from the academy. Their abilities were limited. They could only manage small changes, simple density adjustments, basic shape manipulations, nothing that would impress anyone back on Earth. But they were learning. Watched the graduation ceremony from the observation deck. She had the title of Weapons Master now. The bandages were gone from her eyes, but she would carry scars for the rest of her life. Her hands still ached when it rained. Her head still hurt when she pushed too hard. She did not regret any of it. Beside her stood. His arm had been using a combination of biology and human medicine. He had become one of the first non-humans to successfully learn basic fold techniques. His manipulations were crude but effective. On her other side she wore the insignia of a fold instructor now. She had discovered that her kinetic abilities could be combined with the fold in ways that neither humans nor aliens had predicted. She was developing new techniques that neither species had ever seen before. In the distance, beyond the edge of known space, the Unbound gathered. There were millions of them now, perhaps billions. They had never encountered prey that could fight back. They had never met species foolish enough to stand against them. They were about to learn what that felt like. They will come again soon, said quietly. Our sensors show them massing at the boundary. Let them come, rumbled. We will be ready. Looked out at the stars, at the academy full of warriors from 12 different species, at the graduates marching across the plaza where the first Unbound had died, at the future that humanity had bought with centuries of secret preparation. The academy had called her Unarmed. They had been wrong, and the Unbound were about to discover exactly how wrong they had been. The stars burned cold and bright. The darkness between them held terrors beyond imagination. But for the first time in galactic history, 12 species stood together, and humanity had given them all the same gift they had given themselves: the ability to change the universe itself. One fold at a time,